All right, let's talk about Michael Saylor. He's one of the biggest Bitcoin bulls out there, and he's got this wild, audacious blueprint for how Bitcoin could hit $1 million. So today, we're going to unpack exactly how he thinks that's possible. So let's just get right to it. $1 million for one Bitcoin, is that even possible? Well, we're going to dig into the framework that Michael Saylor uses to get to that absolutely jaw-dropping number. We'll see if the logic actually holds up. Okay, so to really get this prediction, you've got to understand the guy making it. We're talking about Michael Saylor. And look, he's not just some talking head on TV, he's a tech CEO who has literally staked his company's entire financial future on Bitcoin. And when I say he's got skin in the game, I mean serious skin in the game. His company, MicroStrategy, they're sitting on over 125,000 Bitcoin. Think about that. For Saylor, this isn't some abstract theory. No way. It's a multi-billion-dollar bet that he has made with absolute conviction. So the big question is, how on earth does he justify a bet that massive? Well, his whole thesis, and this is really the key, it all comes down to a super powerful analogy. He says if you want to understand Bitcoin's future, you just have to look back at the recent past of the biggest tech giants we all know today. And this is where it gets really interesting. Think back about 10 years ago. Companies like Amazon, Google, Facebook, people thought they were kind of weird, risky, and a lot of folks just didn't get it, right? Well, Saylor's argument is that Bitcoin is in that exact same spot today. It's an asset that's still in its infancy, and he believes most of its incredible growth is still yet to come. I mean, just think about it for a second. The people who made those life-changing 20x returns on tech stocks, they were the ones who got in during that early, super uncertain phase. And that's the core of Saylor's belief. He thinks that exact same window of opportunity, that once-in-a-generation moment, is happening with Bitcoin right now, before it becomes this massive, dominant global asset. Okay, so what makes something a good investment versus a truly revolutionary one? Well, Saylor doesn't just guess. He's actually got this simple three-part checklist that he uses to spot what he calls a once-in-a-generation asset. And here it is. This is his whole philosophy in a nutshell. He's looking for three things, all at the same time. 1, most people don't understand it. 2, a lot of people still want it. And 3, you can't stop it. That combination, misunderstood, desired, and unstoppable, he says that's the magic recipe for insane long-term growth. And you know what? According to Saylor, the proof is all around us. The fact that everyone is still arguing about what Bitcoin even is it a bubble? Is it digital gold? Is it a scam? He says that whole debate is the ultimate proof that we are still in step 1. The argument itself is the signal. All right, so if you're kind of buying into this idea, Saylor says the very next thing you need to do is figure out who are you in this market. He breaks everyone down into 3 distinct groups, and they all have totally different goals. So here are the 3 types. First, you've got your savers. These are the people thinking decades ahead, just trying to preserve their wealth. Then you have investors. They're thinking in maybe 4-year cycles, often looking at those Bitcoin halving events. And finally, you have the speculators. They're in it for the quick buck, the short-term profits. Now, Saylor is crystal clear here. His entire strategy is built for the saver, and only the saver. And this quote right here, this just says it all. If you aren't willing to hold it for 10 years, you shouldn't own it for 10 minutes. Man, that really gets to the core of it, doesn't it? He's not seeing this as a get-rich-quick scheme at all. For him, it's a long-term savings technology, a place to park your wealth for a decade, not something you flip in 10 days. Okay, so let's say you're on board with this. What's the very first thing you should do? Well, before you even think about buying something like Bitcoin, Saylor has this super clear, very practical 2-step plan. And this is his advice for pretty much anyone starting out. First things first, and he's really firm on this, get your house in order. He says you need to build up an emergency fund with at least, get this, 12 months of living expenses. And that money, he stresses, needs to be in your regular, stable, local currency. That's your foundation. Don't skip this step. Okay, so only after you've got that 1-year safety net locked down does he say you should take your extra long-term money and put it into what he calls a scarcity portfolio. Now, this includes things like Bitcoin, maybe some rare real estate or art, but here's where he really diverges from a lot of financial advisors. He says avoid holding cash long-term because inflation will just eat it up. And he even says to avoid company stocks for this portfolio because he thinks they're just too risky for the specific goal of pure long-term wealth preservation. That's a pretty radical take. All right, now for the grand finale. Let's connect all these dots and see how they lead to that absolutely massive, headline-grabbing price target. How do we get from here to $1 million a coin? So, the first step in his logic is pretty straightforward. He says Bitcoin has to take on its closest competitor for store of value, which is, of course, gold. And right now, if you look at the total value of all the gold in the world, it's about 15 times bigger than the total value of all Bitcoin. So, the math here is actually pretty simple. If Bitcoin's total value, its market cap, just catches up to where gold is today, boom, that puts the price of one single Bitcoin at around $500,000. That's just stage one. But here's the kicker. For Saylor, catching up to gold is just the warm-up act. He sees Bitcoin as a better store of value, and he thinks it's going to start sucking up what he calls monetary energy from way bigger pools of money. We're talking about the bond market, the real estate market. These are worth hundreds of trillions of dollars. He believes that as those older assets slowly leak value, all that capital is going to be looking for a new home, a perfect digital store of value. And that, right there, is how you get from 500 grand all the way to $1 million and beyond. So when you put it all together, you can see that Saylor doesn't really see this as a possibility. He sees it as an inevitability, a matter of technology and economics just playing out. And he leaves us with this final, really powerful thought that kind of reframes the whole debate. He's saying the real question isn't if this is going to happen, but when.